I think usually it's good to grab my face.
You know, everything was in his scarecrow.
It was, you're right.
I miss my little cat.
Never mind, Josh. I think I got it.
Google is everything. Oh, Google the Yoma.
I have
I small, huge.
Sally's looking at her watch, so I know that.
our Woodford.
Well, I'm still looking at my.
Woodford.
We're all in Woodford.
Yeah. I'm like, look at this.
Pronounced Woodford. The stuff that I bought. Yes.
Thank you, Rebecca, for doing that.
Turns out, the best thing
I'm not taking
that
my
my grandmother's that he was here a while back.
No.
Was his senior year.
Yes. Oh boy, I know that person.
Did he get a lot of taste to be able to promote it? And business people got a lot of taste. So what's happening with those guys?
Haven't heard yet. For the first, you know.
Exactly. No, he doesn't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think he's done that. Hi, Lori. I met you earlier today, but I'm not always sure.
Didn't see yours.
Lovely to see you. And yes, my little ones are Dyson, who I guess is no longer so little. Right. And Jacob is still pretty little. 11 and 15.
I know you're busy getting started, but
Yes.
oh my gosh, thank
Yeah.
so much.
No, just the last year, he is like, it's crazy, it's totally.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's COVID, like, when everyone went on lockdown, people were like, and all these kids. But I'm like, she just eat more at home, or like, what exactly is going on here? And even emotionally, like, your face is so like, too, like, yes. What happened?
Had an accident.
Is it poor hydration?
That's my husband.
See that I don't know. Yeah. Okay, your mom's left. Your mom's left Brad. Yes. So he started playing the shofar because, and he started playing the French horn because I think the shofar has a very similar pull. So he's been playing the shofar since he's 3 and he took an instrument. He's like, the French horn comes naturally to me. So he's been playing for 5 years now. And he was just invited to the Osby Orchestra, which is a very big honor for a very young man. Yeah. He got in 9th grade, but it was COVID, so there was none, and so he got in again this year, and he's very excited to get to play with other people. Just
I think they also like great dollars.
Yeah, they gather all.
I used to be there. I tell you. Did you get my message? Okay, good.
I've been doing all day. So. Yes. You know where they are in there? Get a drink before we start.
We did museum. We went to the Native American Museum.
We agree with you. It's not
Oh,
as.
you've been there.
Oh, yeah, we don't think it's as well defined and the depth is not there. I find better stuff out here.
But
Now, Mom will want to be on stage.
That is outstanding.
all the different, we only got the two floors in the Olympics. Didn't get to that. What a magnificent.
Yes, it's all day, and I like the way the ramps are set up. It's the Spine Museum. Spine Museum is fascinating.
No, the Spine Museum is awesome. No, I'm not taking this from somebody, I don't, probably not, I don't know, prominent. Don't worry. I don't want to, it's the VIP. Yeah, that's, well. Now.
Yeah, but I agree with you.
Think we're ever gonna get photos
It's
together? Really Catholic feel.
I went to the third.
That's what we want to do.
I had to
thought they were gonna do it at
shopping.
If my family are front row people and I'm a back row person, can I hide back there with you, Eric?
Yeah,
We all do.
yeah, have a seat. I'm,
Look at them sitting up front. Just trying to terrify me. Stand back there. Hey, how's it going? Good, how are you? Good. I'm antisocial, not social distancing. Can you tell the difference? You say it, no. Oh, that's nice. That's helpful. Sure.
Not a lot of Native American.
You can't really need to
That's all.
type it all in.
okay, have fun.
Alan, if you threw a spitball at the back of my head, I'll know who did it. Oh, that guy. Be some of the Indians. That's the young man behind him.
It's a bottle of water smoke.
Whatever. Don't worry, I make these odd. I gotta keep the thing moving.
This isn't our first time. This isn't our first rodeo.
Not my first Alan, how did you know? Where did you
Lori, right? Rabbi.
You can narrate everything that I'm doing.
We had dinner. I did.
Mona. She's a ball.
You don't have to get so quiet yet.
You know Mona already.
You're terrifying. You scare us. That's why we're so quiet.
I hope not.
That's what I did.
Somebody else can use Hello, Miss.
Taking your advice and going on.
So quiet. Ah, I so appreciated the drive here. I am from Central Ohio, Columbus, Ohio. I lived there from the time I was nearly 6, right before the Hagim of 5732. We're up to 82. And Central Ohio is a great place for cycling. It's extraordinarily flat. My kind of cycling. Maybe you like more mountains in your cycling. It's also where they train people who are going to speak on, as reporters on television, how to speak with absolutely no accent whatsoever. It's also the home of a lot of fast food joints and the Ohio State University. And I went from living there to living in very verdant, hilly Nashville, Tennessee to marry my beloved. When people ask me, how's Nashville? The answer is really, I don't know yet, because I moved there as Ohio was shutting down and Nashville Tennessee still wasn't sure what it was doing. And my thought was that I was just going to go down and hang out with Eric for a little while in March and early April, and then come back to Columbus and my kahila there for Passover. And you all know how that goes. So driving here this late afternoon, early evening, and seeing, no matter where I looked, mountains, made me so appreciative of where you live and where you've invited me to be for these yamim noraim, these days of awesome. And it also brought new meaning and perspective to the first bit of our service from Psalm 121, Esa Enai. When we lift our eyes here to the mountains, it has a profoundly different meaning, I can assure you, than any other place that I've ever been, including Eretz Yisrael. So I know that you appreciate this, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to appreciate this. And so I invite you to join me in this tune, which I know is the theme song of your kehillah, your community. Harim me'ayin yavo ezri. Harim me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai. Oseh shamayim va'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai. Oseh shamayim va'aretz. I lift my eyes up to the mountains. From where will my will come. My help will come from the Holy One, maker of all heavens and earth. My help will come from the sacred one, maker of all heavens and earth. Yes, Sahena, Harim, Me'ayin, Yago Esri. Yes, Sahena, Harim, Me'ayin, Yago Esri. Ezri me'im Adonai, Oseh shamayim ba'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai, Oseh shamayim ba'aretz. So the first thing I want to check on is to make sure that everyone is on the same page. And my the printout that I received from Rabbi Francine didn't have page numbers on the Erev Rosh HaShanah service. So I'm going to ask that you, if you are on page 1 or something, is that what it says in your? Okay, that's exactly where I am. And I numbered my pages, and I hope that if I don't let you know where we are, that you will, that somebody, some good soul will shout out where we are. I understand that you are a fairly informal lot, which is good because that's the people that I come from. And my feeling about when we create community like this, when we gather together for tefillah, for prayer, that it is my responsibility as the spiritual leader, as the rabbi, to help to create the banks of the river. And the flow, the shefa that comes from, as we were just singing, from the Holy One, from the ineffable name of whatever it is that we imagine when we imagine the sacred in our lives. That shefa flows down, flows through, and recycles among us because we are all holy beings and we are all a part of making this experience what it is. So I will do my best to hold the banks and to help that flow come. And I invite all of you to also be part of making that flow happen. It's harder as you cannot see people's mouths because usually the mouths show you A, that people are singing along with you, and B, that people are engaged, and occasionally someone over on the side will smile at you, and that is such a return of shefa, of that divine essence. So since I cannot see your mouths, and I really appreciate that we're all taking care of one another this way, if you could move your body in some, there's somebody right there who has really smiling eyes. Thank you for those. Is it Edith? No, Faith has smiling eyes. So thank you, Faith. I already caught those. And whatever you can do, thank you. Whatever you can do to let me know that you're here with me, because for me it's exciting to be here, and it's also I'm away from familiar in my life. So I really appreciate you participating with me in this experience. I'm going to share with you something So my community in Columbus that I grew and led for many years used the Reconstructionist prayer book, which is a heavy brick of a prayer book. And sometimes hard to follow, but it has lovely, lovely stuff in it. So I brought it along with me because it's my rock. Literally, it is my rock. And it also has what I would call a prayer, but other people might call a poem by Mary Oliver at the beginning of the liturgy for Rosh HaShanah. She says, "Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Grasshopper, the grasshopper. I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down in the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? So we have honors that I have been privileged to pass along to you for the service. And tonight we have the candle lighting blessing as our first honor. And I would like to invite up Sally. Who am I inviting up? Sally is my, remind me who I'm inviting up? Yes. Erin, come on down or up. I'm gonna move this so that you can light. Yeah, I'll get this first. Yep, do it. Either nature will decide. Bringing in the light, letting it kind of just radiate over all of us. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivonu lehadlik ner Shel Yom Tov. In Torah, this day that we call Rosh HaShanah, head of the year, is referenced in Vayikra, the book that we also call Leviticus, as Shabbaton Zichron Tru'ah, Mikra Kodesh, a day of complete rest commemorated by blasts, a sacred occasion. And in Bamidbar, the book that is the wilderness, the fourth book of Torah, that we also call Numbers, it is simply called Yom Tru'ah, the day of the call. Early in rabbinic tradition, our sages began to refer to this day as Hayom Harat Olam, the day the world was born, or more precisely, the day the world was conceived. The early rabbis selected Torah and Haftorah readings for Rosh HaShanah that involved stories of very different births, the birth of Ishmael through Hagar, and the birth of Isaac, Yitzchak, through Sarah, and the birth of Samuel through Hannah, the first person to utter spontaneous prayer. Hannah taught us that you don't have to always pray the words in the prayer book, that you can absolutely pray through uttering what is in your heart, what is on your mind, what is on your lips. Early rabbinic midrash, called Pesikta Rabbatai, teaches that the world was created on the 25th of Elul, making Rosh HaShanah the day on which human beings were created, the sixth day. Rosh HaShanah is about creation, about conception and birth, creative relationship, and the significance of every single life, and our call to examine how well we are living what Mary Oliver refers to as our one wild and precious life. So to turn with you to page 2, and I want to invite Dyson to come up. Dyson hard blasts for us at the bottom of the page. And we have the words, these words that come to us from Ecclesiastes. And I think what I'd like to do, I'll start out just with the top part, and then if we could just divide the community in half, kind of right through there where the sun is shining through the tent, or wherever you think you are, those of you in the middle. And we'll start, and we'll do this antiphonally. So we'll start with this side, with the first reading, and then back and forth. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven.
This is the season of the soul, a time to rejoice, a time to reflect, a time to return.
A time to gather around the table with loved ones and friends. A time for prayer and confession. A time to retreat to our sanctuaries. A time to renew the life and spirit of our community.
This is the season of independence, a time to notice when what is unfolded, what is not. A time to regret, a time to forgive, a time to remember cherished dreams.
This is the season of hope, like mist rising at sunset, like dew descending at dawn. Our hopes beautify and nourish everything they touch. Our hopes make us partners in creation, pursuers of peace, people who aspire to a world of justice.
This is the season of awe. When our eyes behold it, we feel blessed. We turn toward each other. Let us feel strength when we see the holy, and may we find purpose, may we find courage, may we find love.
How many words we hear today and every day, the words in our minds, the words others speak, the seemingly endless flow of thoughts, ideas, dreams, hopes, and visions. It is the call of the shofar, the focused sound of breath spiraling through nature's instrument that shatters our assumptions, blasts away our misgivings, and warns us of our pride. It is the sound of the shofar that takes us back before words and time to the primordial collective memory of the compassionate one who conceived us all. The shofar, the Torah tells us, calls to us as the calling of the angel to Yitzchak, to Abraham as he placed Yitzchak on the altar of divine service. The shofar calls to us in celebration and in warning and in revelation. The shofar calls us together to listen, to break, and then to heal our hearts, to open our eyes. We stand together once again at the foot of Har Sinai, of Mount Sinai, and see the sound of the shofar. As one people, one mind, one breath, we witness as breath born through silence opens to a cry of possibilities. Our descendants pass before us as a bridge of hope. Our ancestors extend behind us as streams of wisdom. We stand in your light. We open to awe. We are aware that the choices we make ripple through innocent generations. Source of blessing, we surrender judgment. We surrender blame and fear and offer the vessels of our own bodies as shofarot, inviting the breath of life to sing through us as we listen to the call of the shofar. Tiku b'chodesh shofar, b'kiseh liyom hagenu, ki chok Yisrael hu, mishpat lelohei ha'akol. Kia. Shvarim. Ruah. Tekiah Gedolah. So whether you speak to the Holy One using a name like God or Adonai or Shekhinah, or my favorite is divine mystery, sacred source, or if you're not quite sure that thing which we refer to is real, I know that you are welcome here. You are welcome as a God wrestler. I often think that the name that we are given, Yisrael, the people, which means to wrestle with God, is such a perfect name for us. It gives us the freedom not to be held down by dogma, but to really expand into what it means to be a human being to be wrestling with what it means to have a sense of worship, of awe, of appreciation for the divine. Let's continue together on page 3. I will read what is in regular type, and if you would respond with what is in italics. Eternal God, as the twilight of the old year fades into the night that marks the birth of a new year, we gather with mingled emotions, mindful of life's blessings and sorrows.
You are beginning and 1,000 years in sight.
But as for us, our years are limited. Every hour is precious.
And so we pray, teach us to number our days, we can maintain our hearts.
As we ponder the flight of time, the vanity of our possessions, and the uncertainty of life, we seek to link our lives to that which is timeless and true. Grant us, Divine One, faith and wisdom enough to meet the perplexities and perils which may beset us.
May we acknowledge you as our Creator and recognize all human beings as your children.
May we make this year of dedication to your teachings and devotion to your people and our land, Yisrael.
May you be for us and for all the world, the year of sustenance and cheer and peace and serenity.
May this be a year in which your Spirit will guide our deeds and the love of you will fill our hearts. Amen. So we begin our evening service, our Mariv, with a call to community, the Baruch Hu. And I want to share with you a tune that I use in my own tefillah, and I will share it with you throughout the Hagim, and hopefully we'll be able to sing this together. But it strings together different words for this Yud He Vav He, this ineffable divine name that we insert Adonai most often for. Baruch Hu, dear one, Shekhinah, holy name. When I call on the light of my soul, I come home. When I call on the light of my soul, I come home. Baruch Hu, dear one, Shekhinah, holy name. When I call on the light of my soul, I come home. When I call on the light of my soul, I come home. I invite you to rise with me as we face toward the ark for the Baruch Hu. We'll use the nusach of these days of awe. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, dai, dai. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vared. May be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidbaro ma'ariv arabim v'chochma potech she'arim u'bitbuna mishane itim u'machalif et hazmanim misader et hakochavim v'mishmerotechem barakim no borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or u'ma'avir yom u'mevi layla u'mavdil ben yom u'ben layla Adonai tzvaot shemo El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim, you who evenings the evening, blessed are you. You make the twilight and the dusk, and the wisdom that you have opens the gates of night. You discern everything, that which separates the changing seasons and causes the passage of time. The stars are arrayed across the sky, revealing your design. You roll out the cycle of darkness and light, shaping night and day. You sweep away day and carry the world into nightfall, setting day apart from nighttime. You are God of all we can perceive and all that is beyond our perception. Living, eternal God, be our sovereign at the end of time. And the Hatima, that which seals in the prayer, blessed are you, Adonai, creator of twilight and dusk. Continue on page 5. Ahavat olam beit Yisrael amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot u'kim u'mishpatim otanu limadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shochveinu k'meinu nasiya bechukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'b'mitzvotecha leolam vaed. Ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu uvehem negei yomam ve'layla ve'ahavatacha al tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai Ohev Amo Israel. We invite you to breathe the Shema. Breathe these words of attention on the top of page 6. They're not a prayer, they're actually a statement of the oneness of all and of our sense that we are part of that oneness. And one of the things that I love about this particular statement is this word Shema. Because we often, if you grew up with the old Reform prayer book, it was, Hear, O Israel. And in other places, we see it as listen or hear. And that's the modern use of this word. But in American Sign Language, we learn a brilliant lesson. The word for, if one is signing Shema, the word for Shema is this, which means pay attention. They don't sign it as listening. They sign it as really paying attention. So I invite you to really pay attention to your own breath, to get comfortable wherever it is that you are seating, to feel connected with the earth below you and with the sky above you and with the noises of human and animal life all around us. And we'll take a breath for each word of this statement. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Let's continue with the paragraph of the Haftarah. We'll sing it in the Torah trope. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך וקשרתם להות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. In a little bit, I'm going to introduce you to the theme of these days of awe, and in fact, in this entire year of 5782, the theme of Shemitah. And there's no place where it's so obvious what our relationship is with the earth upon which we live than in the paragraphs of Shema. The second and third one we don't pay as much attention to always. But I wanted to share with you some words of my Rebbe, Reb Zalman Schachter Shalomi of blessed memory. This is how he initially, he has lots of translations of the paragraphs of Shema, and some I'll share later in these days of awe, but this one is an early one of how he reads the third paragraph, second and third. And it will come to pass that when you deeply listen to the underlying patterns of the commandments which I enjoin you here this day, namely to love and accept your Creator and to soul, then your joy will rest in your physical surroundings as good seasons. You will be able to attain satisfaction of all your needs here in a joyful world. When you eat, you will feel satisfied. Watch yourselves, though, that you do not miss the of connection of your God place and be left with rituals that are meaningless to you. Your own anger echo against yourselves, causing you to lose alignment with your divine connection. This misalignment will reverberate through your lives, causing needless unhappiness and suffering. Return again to the depths of these words with heart and soul. Bind yourselves into them with every physical act and thought. Study and teach the truth to your children. Remind yourselves frequently, even as you sit in your house, as you travel, as you dream, and as you wake. May your days and the days of your children be full on the earth as God has always intended and so promised to your parents' parents, that you may enjoy the most heavenly benevolence right here as you live on the land. Lema'an tizkaru, v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'tem kedoshim lelohechem, ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, להיות lechem Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem. Adonai Elohechem. Amen. So we arrive on the shores. We arrive on the shores where Moshe and Miriam, where our people are gathered, and we're afraid to cross over that sea. It is unclear what will happen when we step into the water, and yet we step into the water. We have the faith that it takes to keep moving, to step into the water and go forward. So I invite you on page 10, the top of page 10. Again, we'll use the High Holy Days Nusach to sing these words of Michamocha. Michamocha b'helim Adonai, Mikamocha netar b'kodesh, Noro tehililot oseh b'halev, Malchutecha ra'u v'anecha bokeyam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam zeli anu v'amru Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. And as the sky is mixing, as we talked about in Ma'ariv Aravim, the sky is mixing the light and the darkness, we get to an ancient prayer on page 11. This prayer that our people used to help us to not be afraid of the evening and not be afraid of the darkness of nighttime. Now we have ways of adding light to the nighttime. We also know that not all that happens in darkness is scary. Some things that happen in the darkness are really quite lovely. And there is a generative nature to darkness. And so we have these words, Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom. And I want to share with you a tune from my teacher, Rabbi Hannah Tiferet Siegel. And she uses the words that are at the top, Hashkivenu, and for Adonai, she uses the word Yah, which is a breath word, part of the name of the divine. So Hashkivenu Yah Eloheinu L'Shalom. So that's the first part. And the second part is also in the bold. It's the last part of the bold text, which is Ufros Aleinu Sukat Shlomecha. So there are two parts, and I'm going to sing them, and I invite you to kind of sing along with them. If you don't know the tune yet, you'll get it because it's simple. And the two will fit together, and we'll practice this over the course of the Hagim. And also, if there's a Hashkivenu that you absolutely adore, you're going to need to let me know that too. Hashkivenu ya Eloheinu leShalom. Hashkivenu ya Eloheinu leShalom. Hashkivenu ya Eloheinu leShalom. Hashkivenu ya Eloheinu leShalom. Ufros aleinu sukat shalom acha. Ufros aleinu sukat shalom acha. Hashkivenu ya Eloheinu leShalom. Hashkivenu ya Eloheinu leShalom. Yitkadash Shmei Rabbah V'yalma divrav yurteh v'yamlif malchuteh b'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayei zachal beit Yisrael b'hagala ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. שמי רבא מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקדושה בריחו לילה לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה נמירן בעלמה ויאמרו amen. Each of these Chatzi Kadishas, each of these opportunities to lift up the holy is really our service's punctuation mark. It's our way of saying, okay, we're gonna pause right here. We're gonna take a look at the vista in our climb to the top of the mountain of our service, and we are gonna appreciate where we are. And this Chatzi Kaddish brings us to our Amidah, our standing prayer. And I want to invite you, given that we are in this great expanse, I want to invite you, you're certainly welcome to stay exactly where you are for your Amidah. And if standing feels really uncomfortable for you for a long period of time, I always tell folks, you can stand even while you're sitting if you need to, because you can lift yourself up in your posture to be standing. If you're going to stand, and if you would like to, I'm going to invite you to use more of the area that we have for your own personal Amidah. We are going to begin with Adonai Sevatai Tiftach, with these beautiful words that aren't exactly a part of the tefillah, the Amidah, but were inserted here specifically to help us to open up. And your Amidah doesn't have to look like the words on the page. I know Rabbi Francine tells you this as well. Your Amidah can be like the prayer of Hannah when she thought she could not have a child. And it can be whatever words spill from you on this day of the birthday of the world, the birthday of humanity, whatever that prayer looks like for you. I want to invite you to offer that prayer. So I'm going to begin with the words of Adonai Sfatai Tiftach. I hope it's a tune that you know. And if it isn't, you will let me know as we go through this what tunes you're most comfortable and familiar with, and we will sync up. And I'm going to let us just pray our own Amidah, and I'll bring us back after I feel like we've had enough time for that, and I'll know because you'll begin to start sitting down. And then we'll close with the words that are on pages 19 and 20, the words of Shalom Rav and Oseh Shalom. I invite you to stand and find a place that feels good to you for stepping into your with the divine. Yadadai dai 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 Adonai. Yadadai dai 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 Sfatai Tiftach. Yadadai dai 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 Ufi Yagi. Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Yadadai dai 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 Adonai. Yadadai dai 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 Sfatai Tiftach. Yadadai dai 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 Ufi Yagi. Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Let's continue on page 21. We'll read responsively. Great is peace, for all blessings flow from peace.
Great is peace, for without peace no blessing is complete. Page 20.
Page 20. Okay, I'm so sorry. Great is peace, for even in times of war, the hope for peace is undiminished.
Great is peace, for peace is granted to those who repent.
Great is peace, for peace is granted to those who love and study Torah.
Great is peace, for peace is granted to the humble.
Great is peace, for peace is granted to those who do justice.
Great is peace, for God's name is peace.
Great is peace, for peace is equal in weight to all the works of creation.
Great is peace, for even heaven needs peace.
Behold, if peace is needed in heaven, where neither hatred nor strife is found, how great the need for peace on earth, where hatred and strife abound. And that begins us into some of the heavier language of these days of awe. And I invite you into the heaviness, into the weight of these days. And at the very same time, I invite you to really take to heart that this liturgy is heavy and that your duty to yourself is to be compassionate and kind, just as you are accounting for the things that you feel you need to account for. We have lived through a very heavy 5781, and it began before then. And 5782 has light and hope coming in through the windows, and yet we know that we're still in a very heavy place. So I invite you to be compassionate and loving with yourselves as you move through the days of awe. And as you move through the liturgy, remember, it's always an option for you to question the liturgy, to wrestle with the liturgy. And while I'm here, I don't have a whole lot to do other than prepare for the next service. So if you want to get in touch with me and talk about some of these things, I'm really happy to do that. And that is an honest offering. So there are a number of you who know how to get in touch with me. I'm happy to share my phone number with folks. If you haven't spent the time during the month of Elul doing this Heshbon HaNefesh, doing this soul accounting, to like walk in the door, bam, to this liturgy, it's a lot. So that's not saying that you should have been engrossed in the work during the month of Elul. In fact, my husband is fond of telling me over and over again until I'm almost learning it, that the word should is a really punishing one. So what I'm saying to you is that if you weren't participating in this soul accounting for a while now, it's like trying to run a marathon without having done the preparation and the stretching. So be gentle and kind with yourself as you run the marathon of the next 10 days. So we get to the Avinu Malkeinu, one of the most powerful and evocative of the high holiday prayers. And it's said during the Amidah, but here we give you a little break, and then we move into the Avinu Malkeinu and these very passionate words about wanting the divine to hear us, wanting the divine to hear our prayers, wanting the divine to know that we know that we have some work to do, that we are human, and that means that we sometimes miss the mark. Know if you know this, I would imagine Rabbi Francine has shared with you that the word that we use, this heavy word sin in English, that word hate in Hebrew is actually an ancient archery term. So it's about missing a mark. When we miss a mark, we have to turn. We have to do tshuva. We have to do a turning in order to better hit the mark. So if you can start to think during these days, not about how you have been sinful, but how you have strayed ever so slightly, maybe a little bit more for some of us, but ever so slightly from the mark, and that this is our opportunity to realign ourselves and to move toward what we believe to be ethical living. When we recite Avinu Malkeinu, we open the ark, and I would like to invite Rabbi Alan Setcher, if you would come forward to open the ark, because Francine wanted you to have an honor. Rabbi to rabbi. And if I didn't give you an honor tonight, I'd be in big trouble. Plus, you're a very honorful kind of guy. So if you would come forward and open the ark.
Thank you.
I invite you to all rise before the ark. And can somebody say what page, is this page 21 in yours? 22. Okay, that's where, okay. I don't know, I must have mispaginated. Avinu Malkeinu, Shma Koleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Chamol aleinu, Ve'al aleinu, V'tapeinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kole Kol Tsar, U'mahasen Me'aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Kotvenu, Besefer Chaim Tovim. Avinu Malkeinu, Chadesh Aleinu, Chadesh Aleinu, Shana Tova. Avinu Malkeinu, Charem Karen Yisrael. Amecha. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu ve'aneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Choneinu ve'aneinu, ki ein banu masim. Asimanu, tzedaka v'chesed. Asimanu, tzedaka v'chesed, v'choshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu ve'aneinu, ki eimanu ma'asim. Let's turn to the next page for the Avinu Malkeinu, in English, a prayer of protest. Avinu Malkeinu, together, hear our voice. Some of us have cancer, some have lost strength of body, some have lost memory and speech, some of us are in pain, some can't find work, some of us bear the marks of human cruelty, inside where the stars don't show. Some live with depression, some battle addiction, many feel alone. Some have known shattered marriages, trust betrayed, hopes destroyed. Some of us have lost the ones we love far too soon, and some have lost a child. All of us have seen suffering in our midst. All of us know the ravages of war, for which there are no words. Avinu Malkeinu, why? Avinu Malkeinu, are you there? Do you care? Avinu Malkeinu, hear our pain, hear our anger, hear our grief. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our prayer. Give us the strength to go on. Give us reason to get up each day. Give us purpose and persistence. Help us to fend off fear and to hold on to hope. Help us to be kind. Don't make us grovel. Give us dignity and give us courage. Avinu Malkeinu, show us the way to a year of goodness. Renew our belief that the world can be better. Restore our faith in life. Restore our faith in you. I invite you to sit. As we open to this new year, to 5782, there are ways in which we carry the heaviness of 5781 through the metaphorical gates, the front gates of these Yamim Noraim, these days of awe. In the spring, with the miraculous momentum of medical minds and hands, we had a vaccine and the opportunity for our entire nation of states to move steadily, or at least muting the impact of COVID in our lives. We imagined returning to some sense of normal, whatever normal is. As we moved through the summer, we began to realize how very connected, if we didn't already know, how very connected we earthlings are to one another. And I say earthlings because my favorite pairing of words in Hebrew is Adam and Adamah. Adamah, the earth. Adam then is not Adam, is not man, but earthling. So we began to realize how very connected we earthlings are to one another. We have become painfully aware that in a country where many individual freedom above compassion for one's neighbor, personal choice was going to keep us stuck in this pandemic for longer than we thought. We hoped, even prayed that our experience of this new year would be different from last year's. And it is. In fact, it is. You weren't sitting together last year, correct? You were all on Zoom. together. Yes. So thank you for the physical response. I appreciate that. And, and many communities are sitting in front of a screen this year, including many within our own community, because this is scary, coming together in person. And I wish it weren't. But this year is different. In fact, each year, each season, each month, each week, each day, each moment is different. Each gives us an opportunity to notice, to act, to reflect, to grow, to change, to be. And living through a global pandemic in an era of planetary crisis is heavy. It has exposed us to more than a virus, more than unusual environmental events like extreme heat, long dry spells, fires, stronger hurricanes, floods, and tornadoes. It has also exposed us to human selfishness, human greed, arrogance, bigotry, and societal patterns we might rather have pretended had long since been eradicated from our country. And still, we step into this new year with the same greeting we offer one another every single year. Shana Tova Umitsuka. May it be a good and sweet year. And I mean it when I say it, and I'm sure you do too. Okay, so this year, time feels a bit sticky. So for the new year, I offer the analogy of trying to move quickly through a long vat of honey. We step into 5782 with time feeling sticky and thick, as if things are moving slowly. And yet, at any moment, they can become thin or flexible or even sweet. What we are learning, if we are paying attention, is powerful and will serve us well for the rest of our lives. We are learning that living well is expecting and welcoming uncertainty and what it brings. We are learning that acceptance and adjusting to whatever comes our way is healthier for our bodies and our minds than anxiety, fear, and anger, though we may well have to go through those emotions before we get to acceptance. We are learning that when we speak to others and to ourselves with curiosity and kindness, we create healthier communities and relationships, including the one we have with ourselves. We are learning that things are far less valuable than hugs and safe travel to visit those we love. We are learning that we are all connected and that life is fragile and precious, and that people are resilient and miraculous. We are learning that our planet, also resilient and miraculous, is fragile and precious, and our behavior and greed is eroding its stability. And this brings me to the theme we are given. You're just given a theme for this new year, because this is a Shemitah year in the sagacious cycling of Jewish time. Shemitah is first introduced in the Torah in Shemot, in the book of Names or Exodus, in Parshat Mishpatim, as part of a short set, actually it's a pretty long set, of moral codes by which to live. In 11 verses of Torah, beginning in chapter 23, we are told the following directions. And this is immediately after we've just received revelation at HaShanah, at Mount Sinai. We are told in Mishpatim to, one, be fair and just. And it specifically says, you shall not join hands with the guilty to act maliciously or side with the mighty to do wrong. We are told that fairness extends to rich and poor, to our enemies, and to their animals. We are told that thing that we are told 36 times in Torah, that we shall not oppress a stranger, for we know the feelings of the stranger, having ourselves been strangers in the land of Egypt, land of narrowness, of Mitzrayim. And finally, we are told in establishing community, in establishing moral codes to live by in community, to give the land a Shabbat every 7th year. We are told 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its yield, but in the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow. Let the needy among your people eat of it, and what they leave, let the wild beasts eat. In other words, you should have been prepared, because you're not the one who's going to eat from it. You shall do the same with your vineyards and your olive groves. Shemitah, often translated into English as sabbatical or sabbatical year, means release. So we enter a year of release. What does that mean? Torah teaches us to release, to let loose, to rest the land that we have utilized for its yield. Torah is both literal and metaphorical wisdom. Literally, we are to allow the land to rest for a year. Our sages have determined that Shemitah refers only to Eretz Yisrael, only to that land of Yisrael. Yet, the growing edge of Jewish practice, the Jewish environmentalists among us, hopefully among this community as well, they are teaching us that we bring Shemitah into our relationship with the earth and one another every 7 years. As human doings, it may be hard enough to observe Shabbat, a day of rest and renewal, every week. We are so accustomed to being busy, and connecting to our busyness through all of our tools of productivity. The one that really gets me is the one I hold in my hand. And I know that I have become beholden to it in a way that is unhealthy. So if we want to take one day of the week, a Shabbat, to rest, if we are told to shamor v'zachor, to guard and to observe the Sabbath, how much more intriguing and, though difficult, liberating might it be to observe a year of rest. And I'm not suggesting that you like Rip Van Winkle, like that you go to sleep for an entire year, but I am suggesting that there are things that we can do to observe a Shemitah for ourselves. A year of allowing our productivity to lie fallow and setting aside our ingrained habits of acquiring stuff. What might that look like in terms of our consumption of items on Amazon, for example? Now, I know you live in a place where you need to rely heavily on that which has a very large carbon footprint. I get it. And what might we be willing to release? And what might we do with our own release to provide for those in need? Which it does say in Torah that those who are in dire need of your assistance are the ones who eat from your fallow field. Torah couples the Shemitah release with care for those less fortunate and overworked by us, including the land and its animals. I've been thinking about this a great deal, not for a sermon, but I've been thinking about it a great deal in relation to my own life as I have been sorting through many, many things and habits that need to be released, that desperately need to be released. My husband is listening and he knows this too. He's a minimalist, and I came to our marriage with a lot of stuff. My parents lived in the same house for 47 years and never released anything. It was all precious and special and evoked a memory. In fact, when we went through my mom's drawers of her desk, there were so many high holiday cards that I brought a couple of packages with me. So when I give out honors in the coming days, I'm going to give them out with a holiday card, and you will know that it is from Orlean Schimberg, Zikrana Livracha. So everything was precious, and everything needed to be kept. Everything was tidy and had its place in my parents' home. You walked into my parents' home and it was so tidy. And yet, as Marie Kondo, the rabbi of tidy spaces, says, people attempt to store everything without getting rid of anything. When things are put away, a home will look neat on the surface, but if the storage units are filled with unnecessary items, we are doomed to repeat the same mistake without making tshuva. Well, actually, Marie Kondo does not finish the sentence that way. She says, this will inevitably lead to a relapse. But to me, that's like what we're doing with tshuva. If we do this work of turning, of making amends, we are told the only way that we know that we've really, truly done our tshuva is if we don't make the same mistake again. So 2 years ago, my beloved mother of blessed memory died, and she knew she was going to die. She was given a terrible diagnosis 4 years before she died, and she was such a strong woman. She was a starker, as her mother would say, and she just was not going to die. And she lived for 4 years. She was able to see me ordained, which I was so afraid she wouldn't. She was there with me in Colorado. And when she died, she was surrounded by her family. Just how I think maybe we all might wish to see the end of our lives, surrounded, if not by our family, by extreme love. So my mom's family, my brother and my sister-in-law and my dad and I sat beside her in their beautiful home, and she took her last breaths. And she was also surrounded by all of the objects that she had not been able to release, and the objects that my grandmother had also been unable to release of her own, as if they may have thought that they could insulate themselves from the inevitable. So I have spent the last 2 years amidst all of my stuff, because as I told you, I moved to Nashville last year to marry my beloved. And what I didn't tell you is I sold the house that I had lived in Columbus with all of the stuff that I had accumulated through my adulthood and through my two children's first 2 decades of life. So I had all of my stuff and so much of my mom's stuff and much of my grandmother's stuff too. And there I was trying to decide what to keep and what to release. And very, very slowly, and Eric, my husband, will tell you just how slowly, I am learning to practice Marie Kondo's most brilliant advice, which is the criterion for deciding what to keep and what to discard is whether or not something sparks joy. When deciding, it is important to touch that object. And by that, I mean holding it firmly in both hands as if communing with it. Pay close attention to how your body responds when you do this. I swear, she must be a Jewish renewal person, right? Anybody who knows Jewish renewal, this is like so what my people in Jewish renewal would like hold it and feel it and commune with it. And pay close attention to how your body responds. And when something sparks joy, you should feel a little thrill, as if the cells in your body are slowly rising. When you hold something that does not bring you joy, however, you will notice that your body feels heavier. Remember that you are not choosing what to discard. Rather, you're choosing what to keep. Keep only those things that bring you joy. And when you discard anything that doesn't, don't forget to thank it before you say goodbye. By letting go of the things that have been in your life with a feeling of gratitude, you foster appreciation for and a desire to take better care of the things that remain in your life. In the next 10 days, I look forward to imagining with you how we might utilize the wisdom of Shemitah, of release, to invite rest into the rhythms of our busy lives. May your year, may all of our years be filled with sweetness, sweetness of honey and apples, kindness and mitzvot, health and well-being, abundance and release. And may you find in your release and in your rest a spaciousness that allows you to imagine new possibilities for creativity and growth. So with that, I am going to move us. One of the things you'll have to work with me on, Sally, is my timeliness is not great. You were expecting to be here for an hour and a half, right? Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Well, it's past an hour and a half, but we've just got a little bit more to do. And Jewish time, it's like, like COVID time. It's just expansive and elastic. I'm sorry? Can you still see to read? Oh yeah, I can see. I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for asking. I really appreciate that. Yes, I can see in the dwindling light and these beautiful lights that you have under the tent. So I'm going to invite us on page 24 to rise for Aleinu, for these words where we say, it is upon us. We say all kinds of nice words during a service, but really those words to mean anything. It's upon us to effectuate them, to activate them. Aleinu leshabech ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo asamanu kemishpochot adama, shelo asam chelkenu kachem, v'gora ככל המונה. ואנחנו קוראים ומשפטים רואים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נותן שמיים לעושר הארץ ומושב עיקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומי הם אפסולתו כה כתוב בתורתו וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ ותחת אין עוד ככתוב בתורתך אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Be seated. Before we say Kaddish, I have two things to share with you. And normally I would cheat and take one of them out, but they're both so good that I need to share them both with you. And I actually promised when I met Zach and Kat, and they told me that life was growing inside of Kat, I said, oh, you're going to love one of the things I have to share on Erev Rosh HaShanah. So I have two readings. One is called Life After Birth. The other is called Life After Death. And then after the readings, I want to invite people who are either in a period of mourning, and then people who are observing a yard site, and then people whose custom it is to stand before we say Kaddish at home, which is on my page 26. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My page turner guy. I have to thank you and meet you when the service is up. So, Life After Birth is from a Hungarian writer whose name I always mess up, but I'm going to try again. Utmatato Leleknik. That's his name. It's really dry here. It's so humid where I'm from. In a mother's womb were twin babies. One asked the other, "Do you believe in life after delivery?" The other replied, "Why, of course. There has to be something after delivery. Maybe we are here to prepare ourselves for what we will be later." "Nonsense," said the first. "There is no life after delivery. What kind of life would that be?" The second said, "I don't know, but there will be more light than here. Maybe we will walk with our legs and eat with our mouths. Maybe we will have other senses that we can't even understand now." The first replied, "That's absurd." Walking is impossible. And eating with our mouths, ridiculous. The umbilical cord supplies nutrition and everything we need. But the umbilical cord is so short. Life after delivery is to be logically excluded. The second insisted, well, I think there is something, and maybe it's different than it is here. Maybe we won't need this physical cord anymore. The first replied, nonsense. Moreover, if there is life, then why has no one ever come back from there? Delivery is the end of life. And in the after delivery, there is nothing but darkness and silence and oblivion. It takes us nowhere. Well, I don't know, said the second, but certainly we will meet Mother, and she will take care of us. The first scoffed. Mother? You actually believe in Mother? That's laughable. If Mother exists, then where is she now? The second said, she is all around us. We are surrounded by her. We are of her. It is within her that we live. Without her, this world would not and could not exist. Said the first, well, I don't see her, so it is only logical that she does not exist. To which the second replied, sometimes, while in silence, when you focus and really listen, when you shema, you can perceive her presence and can hear her warm and loving voice calling down from above. Life after death. And this is by Laura Gilpin. These things I know, how the living go on living, and how the dead go on living with them, so that even in a forest, even a dead tree casts a shadow, and the leaves fall one by one, and the branches break in the wind, and the bark peels off slowly, and the trunk cracks, and the rain seeps in through the cracks, and the trunk falls to the ground, and the moss covers it. And in the spring, the rabbits find it and build their nest inside the dead tree so that nothing is wasted in nature or in love. Now we recall those whom we have lost. Is there anyone who has lost a loved one in the last 30 days, in the last 11 months? Would you be willing to rise and share the name of your loved one?
Ready?
Betty.
Betty? Eddie and Teddy. Is there anyone who is observing a yard site this evening? The anniversary of the death. Okay. So one of the lessons that I learned from my dear teacher, Rabbi Daniel Siegel, about saying Kaddish Yatom, about saying the orphan's Kaddish, the mourner's Kaddish, is that we attune our ear to the cadence of the mourner. We don't rush through this Kaddish, even if it's getting cold. And we attune our ear to the mourner. And you know, if you have time later and you want to know a little bit more about the loved one who is being remembered, lifted up, when we say Kaddish Yatom, when we talk about the oneness and the greatness of this Mother, Father, God that we speak to a lot during these high holy days, that's a kindness too. So I invite you, if it's your custom, to rise for the mourner's Kaddish, and we'll say together. And just another note is that we have an extra le'ela during the days of awe. So we help the soul to rise and rise during the days of awe. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shmei rabba, be'alma divrach yurte v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon u'b'yomechon u'b'chaye dachal beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru, amen. Yehe shmei rabba mevarach le'olam olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmed kedusha b'richu le'ela ule'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata damiran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemayim v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol Yosrei Tevel v'imru amen. May those who are remembering bring forward those things which bring you joy from those memories, and may you feel that memory as a comfort and a support as you move forward. So I was going to end with HaShanah Haba'ah, but I think let's just end with a quick song that you like, that you're used to singing on a regular basis. Give me that song. Oseh Shalom. Okay. And do you do the Oseh Shalom? No? Oseh. Well, that's also, there are two Debbie Friedman ones. That's the problem. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Uyaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Imru Yaseh Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Yaseh Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Yaseh Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Yaseh Shalom Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Shana Tova Umetuka. And for those of you who are coming back tomorrow morning, we are meeting at the very early hour of 9 a.m. Because you all must be early risers, unlike the rabbi. So I will plan accordingly, and maybe I will ask Sally to maybe give me a call, just make sure I'm awake. And if there's any other announcements, I figure we'll save them for tomorrow morning. Yeah? Okay. Shana Tova.
What part of Nashville you guys from?
Sorry?
What part of Nashville you guys from?
I'm not.
Oh,
my
I
husband.
thought,
I tell you about that, right?
Hey,
Rebecca had the right. Yeah, I'm giving you right. Yeah, no problem. We'll help you with moving stuff around.
Well, let me end the live stream.
Yeah.
I am living in.
Yeah, I want someone to see you
Oh,
in 10
oh my
days.
gosh.
All the bugs have reports.